This is, we're going to learn how to Sicha Metzora Beis and Chelek Yud Zayin. This is a Rashi Sicha. And as an introduction, I think, which is most probably known to everybody, that the Rebbe, when he explains Rashi, he learns that Rashi not necessarily has to correspond with the dinim in the Gemara. Sometimes Rashi even explains something the opposite of halacha. And therefore, the Rebbe is going to bring out over here a certain Rashi, why Rashi is forced to learn what he learns, not based on Gemaras or halachas, but on Pshutei Shel Mikra. It's a very gishmak sicha. Let's go. We'll learn the text inside and we'll translate it into English. Impossible klicheres hashiyiga be'azov yishover v'chol klietz yishatif b'mayim. A klicheres that azov touches has to be broken, and the klietz has to be put into the mikveh. That's the type of Yishatif B'mayim. Stellt sich Rashi of the Werte Klicheres hashiyiga be'azov. Rashi quotes these 5-6 words. Und is mefarish. Yochel afilo nogebei ma'acherav. I would think that what is the type hashiyiga be'azov means that the zov touched the Klicheres from the back of the keli. V'cholu ki the isa b'teres kehanim ad ezeh magoi. And over there the Teres Kehanim concludes that it does not mean to touch from the back. What is considered touching? Heseti means pushing it. Pushing it means not necessarily through the hand touching it, but through something else, pushing something else, and eventually that thing gets pushed. Darf man verstehen, was ist das schwer im Pshutei Shel Mikra? What's so complicated in the simple pasuk? But to leave them is Rashi mefarish die Werte Rashi Yigabay leidrosh as Chazal and Teres Kehanim und nicht as Yigabay is kipshutei. Das meint Negia und jede Negia für the Macheref. Negia, the touch Yiga in Pshutei Shel Mikra means touching. Comes Rashi and it says over here does not mean touching, means pushing through something else. What's forcing Rashi to explain in Pshutei Shel Mikra, because it says like that in Teres Kehanim. Teres Kehanim is not Pshutei Shel Mikra. Says the Rebbe, is the Hasbara in them. Over here we can't touch. In Pshutei Shel Mikra, you can't touch, that it means touching. Why not? As ein klecheres mitame el mavide in Parshas Shmini legabi tumas of sheretz. We learn, and Rashi brings it down, that a klecheres does not become tummy only when you put inside in the ear. It comes tummy from the ear inside, and not from touching it in the back. It from the outside does not get taught, does not become tummy. Is the Rebbe kemen sheindon nit teichen as klicheres hashiyiga beizol tummy werden durch negia mached. Therefore, you can't translate. It means through touching from the back of the keli, from the outside of the keli. Is that what it means? On the other hand, yes, as meken mechalik zay. In other words, the pasha the taich for sure not. What is the taich? So the Rebbe goes on. Yes, meken mechalik zay. You could make a differentiate between our din and the din of Pashishmin. Darf gedorten batuma sheretz, was is atuma kalo. In Pashishmin is talking about atuma sheretz, which is a light tuma. You become tummy only till the evening, and other din. But this is one of the dinim. Therefore, is ein klecheres mitame el mavire. That's why the klecheres does not become tummy only when you put something inside the ear. What is that? Tumah Chamura. Tumah is a tumah which is much more strict. First of all, it's for 7 days. But besides that, also, she says Metambe b'mishka v'v'meisha. B'mishka v'meisha is called in other places a tumah smederis, which means, in other words, that if the zov is on top of the bed or the seat, even if he's not touching it, in other words, there's a rock on the bed or on the seat, and he's sitting on the rock. This is called tumah smederis, tumah mishka v'meisha. That's a chumra, a very chumra. Therefore, I would think, can I klecheres? Yeah, tell me when duch negia machero. If so, maybe you can say you can't learn from Pasha Shmini. Maybe over here it does mean simple. Pshutei Shel Mikra, touching it from the outside. B'meile unyi b'yigabei b'mein dok pshut. If so, yigabei means the literal translation, touching it. The riber, they to bavorin. Amazon nidon emitzim chiluk. order to tell us, don't make this differentiation between Tumazov and Tumasheret. And because if you would learn that Chiluk, Yigamim means touching. Therefore, it makes more sense to make the Chiluk. But in order to explain not to make the Chiluk, is Rashi matik from Pasik. First of all, Rashi quotes in the Pasik, Nit no diverte velacher mefadish yigaboy. Rashi is only translating what is the meaning of the word yigaboy. Yigaboy over here does not mean touching, it means pushing. So Rashi should have just quoted the words yigaboy. Nevertheless, Rashi does quote nor as euch diverter, was is mavli dem chiluk. He also quotes in Pasik this chiluk to show us the difference between here and Pasha Shmini, uklecheres ashigabe hazov, that we're talking about over here, uklecheres, that the zov, not the tubasheres does. And therefore, that's we quote. And therefore, Rashi says, Yo, zocht Yochel, afil nogabe ma'acherav, vibalta do retzich doch wegen tumazov. In other words, if you would think that difference between tubasheres and tumazov, and therefore tumazov maybe is metame ma'acherav, kid isa b'teres kayanim. And therefore, Rashi teaches, brings from the Teres Kenim, that Teres Kenim says it means not touching, it means asete. The Rebbe continues on to bring over here, der Hemshech in Teres Kenim, what is the continuation? V'chulu. Rashi only brings v'chulu, etc. But what does it say in Teres Kenim? The Rashi said, the Rebbe quotes, B'dinhu, l'choyri k'meka kavachaymet, Oma im mes hachomor. Ames is a voice hatuma. It's the hardest tuma. Hachamur. The din is it if it touches a klecheres from the outside, the klecheres does not become tamei. Hazova kalo ein din shalei tamei klecheres machedov. Zov, which is lighter, it's not a via voice hatuma that the tamei. So b'meile ebazei, I would think maybe you can compare. You can think that it is. You can learn the Kavachemer that it should not be Metama, the Hemshech and the Teres Kenim is like you can slug up, and that not necessarily it's a Kavachemer, because there's a Chumra into Mazov over Mes. Like Ima Marto Bemes, Ima Amrit Bemes, Sheina Esa Mishka Bamesha, Ochulu. Mes does not have this din of Tumas Mishka Bamesha. So you have to actually touch the mess or be in an oil with the mess. But Akbanim not Mishka Bamesha. Mashen Azov, as we said, is Matamba Bamishka Bamesha. Therefore, Tamad Lema Ashiyigabai. The pasuk over here says Ashiyigabai. Ulahalom Neimer Asher Tubushal Boy. It says in another pasuk that you cook in it. Ma boy Omalahalom Meavirei, Av boy, Avkan Meavirei. In other words, over here, we compare it with a boy, that just like cooking, you cook inside. Over here, the pasuk says boy also means a shiga boy inside. This is the quotation from the Teres Kenim. Zok the Rebbe, if so, oib negia macherev is nit mitamei. It was meant yeah boy. If it's not Matame for the back, what is the boy? That he continues on bringing the continuation of the Teres Kenim. If then Rashi didn't see him from Teres Kenim, if so, is a magoy shukikulei, which is a magoy touching, which is like the whole thing becomes tummy. This is the conclusion of the Pasha, the Taicha Rashi with bringing the Teres Kenim. Says the Rabbi Sivbeis. Bedarf aber verstehen man manfshach. Oh, der Rashi hat gedacht, matig seinem Teres Kenim im Ganzen. Euch der Raya Ashiyiga Boy kann nicht meinen Machero. Und euch Rashi verlost sich, als man allein noch gucken, Teres Kenim, hat euch nicht gedacht, matig sein dem Siyam, Magoi. Nur endlich in sein Pirush mit der Werte, Kedisha mit Teres Kenim, and check it up in Teres Kenim. Rashi doesn't bring the whole shakla batalia back and forth. Why Asheveka Kavachem that it should not be Matama Macherov or yet be Matama Macherov. The whole Arichas in Teres Kenim is just what's with a chulu. So why doesn't he just bring the continuation? Valderech Pirush in Pashas Vayikra. Rashi writes like that in some other places in Pashas Vayikra. Rashi over there says a certain pasuk which is and you don't have it in the Rosh. It says in Teres Kenim. So, why does Rashi bring part of the Teres Kenim and not the rest of the Teres Kenim? Says the Rebbe, Papash is what you can't verreffen. Das, was Rashi bringt dem Sie, why does Rashi bring the conclusion? Weil damit ist gegeben dem Teich von Yigabay. Hesed. L'poel Rashi is Pshutish Mikra. So what is the Teich Yigabay? The Rashi teaches. You should know that was the Teich over here. Yigabay has it moving it. Mashaink in the Friedrich Hemshech Teres Kainim was taking this blaze Alimud Varayas Kilcheres Einimatam Nacherim. The beginning of the Teres Kainim, which is the Shakla Vatara, yes or no, the limud you learn out, where do you learn out from? That's already not Pshutish Mikra. That's already a limudim. The Rebbe bringt Teres nicht. Und verlässt sich am Vetalein mehr ein sein Teres Kainim. The main point that Rashi has to bring out of is the Taich, Pshutish Mikra of the word Yiga. And that's why it brings the conclusion. That's what you could say. So der Rebbe ist aber schwer, als zu sagen. Wann wir geredet kam auf Omim, als was ist Muchrach zu Avanas Pshutish Mikra, bringt Rashi Aruis Klor for Ben Chomish Meforish. Everything which I need to know in order to understand the Taich, the Pashut, the Pshutish Mikra, Rashi explains. Und wir bauen, dass der Pirish von Yigaboy kann meinen euch nicht machero. Aber Chomish Mikra knows, aber as Yigaboy means touching from the outside. Not over here, there's a reason why we can't touch this. And therefore, as a result of that, what's the Taich Yigaboy, has Heite, what the Rashi darf schreiben befehlisch, der Minion, was machriach, zu befallen sein, nicht das sei, und nicht verlassen sich auf den Zirin zum Teres Kenim. Der Chomish Mikra is not going to go in that check. He has to know Pshutish Mikra. What's forcing Rashi to touch? That Yigaboy over here does not mean touching. Überfragt, als der Teres Kenim lernt es ab von Akzere Shove und nicht von Pashtus Aksuvim. And the Rabbi says in the Hara 7, Av Shigam Akzere Shove limited Pshutish Mikra Kira Muchach Mezeshi over Papirish Rashi Alatera. In some places Rashi brings this. That's not a simple. Rashi says, "Ain't the limit poshet kolkach kepirish haposhet shalakosu gam the like limit shalakavachimer." Therefore, back into the pnim, the Chomish Mikra has to know what's forcing the Rashi to say that over here the taich is not touching. Over here the taich is hesed. So, and the Chomish Mikra wants to know that as well. That's Pshutish Mikra. Muss man sagen, says the Rebbe. As like Pshutish Mikra is the Reihe nicht von der Gzere Shava Bebe, was wird nicht gebracht in Pirish Rashi. The Teres Kenim brings it from der Gzere Shava Bebe, Ashet the Bushel Bebe, it's inside. Aber in Pshutish Mikra, that's not the fault. That's why the Rashi does not quote it, nor from the Werter, was Rashi is matig beferish from Teres Kenim. Only the words which Rashi does quote. And that's why Rashi is going to quote certain words and certain ways not. Und das, was sagt, v'chulu k'de'isa b'teres kenim, is not letois v'sarayi o b'yer kidela kaman. There must be a hasbarim pshutish mikra. Why does he write chulu? That you should look in teres kenim? Because it's going to add on a little bit more to the understanding of pshutish mikra, as the Rebbe is going to explain later. Und der Vater ist a mistapik mit der Remes v'chulu k'de'isa b'teres kenim, and he doesn't quote the teres kenim because only the elatoistus be you needed, but not for the actual thing. The Rebbe continues on in Siv Gimel. L'cha'era what you can't sagen in Pshutish Mikra, remember, as me lernt es ab von Tumes Mes. Was es euch hat Tume Chamure bejeiser, more Chomer, und von deswegen, not more Chomer, Tume Chamure bejeiser, und von deswegen ist es nicht mit Tame a Klecheres Machero, wie man wird weiter lernen in Parshas Chukas, versteht man davon, also ich azov, was ist nicht as Chomer wie Mes, as we said before already, the Mes is avi avis hatuma, is also nicht mit Tame a Klecheres Machero. Das ist Kavonas Rashi in Zayin sein zum Teresketen. Meint nicht die Gzele Shava boy, which is a limud, not pure the Sholom. Nur dem Kavachemer, was bringt sich dort? Oh man, Mesa Chomer leitime klecheres machero. Zavakal in the dinshale itame klecheres machero. Was zakal vachemer? Svara pshute Sholom. In other words, what Rashi means is to bring what the Teres Kenim says, the Kal V'Chomer, where we should learn from Matamat Mes that it's not Matama Macherev. And that's going to force Rashi to show Mikra. It's not Kal V'Chomer. But a Kal V'Chomer is a Svar Pshute. The Gemara says, Adam don Kal V'Chomer miatzma. Every person can make a Kal V'Chomer by himself. A Gzer Shavi you can't make by yourself. You have to be Makabalit. Who learns properly can understand the Kalvachemer, and Rashi himself brings down also many Kalvachemers as Rez Mitzayin in order 8. And Agamas the Tereskenim frekt up the Kalvachemer. The Tereskenim we learned before has a kasha and says this Kalvachemer is not a good kasha because he finds a chumra and zav over mess. A Kalvachemer is a taich. This is kal and that is chemer. But if you find a chemer in the thing which is kal, it becomes uis Kalvachemer because it can become a chemer kal. But as eich bazav do a chumra was is eise mishka v'meishav. Thomas matters. Was in the toba mess. If so, the Tereskenim shlops up the Kalvachemer. So what do you mean? The Rashi brings the Kalvachemer from Tereskenim, which is a pshuti shel mikra, because it's a Kalvachemer. The Tereskenim shlops it up. So the Rebbe, what is this shot in pshuti shel mikra? He shlops it up. Meint es nor a shkulim heim. If you have this side of the kal, that's a chemer, and the other way, this could become a chemer, that's a kal. So either one is not more stricter than the other. So they're equal. Shkulim heim. Uli pshute shel mikra, we're not learning halacha. And halacha could be that one overpowers the other, as the Rebbe brings in order 9. But in pshute shel mikra, it means that this is a tam of the zone, zayin shkulim. B'meili the shkulim, oich in them din, for nit tam is not like cheres ma'acherim. There can be shkulim also in this result, but both of them are not tam ma'acherim. So even the Tereskenim slugs up the kal v'chomer, but it can make him shkulim equal. So just like a Tama Mes is not Matama Machedav, if so over here also it's not Matama Machedav. That's where you can learn. That's what's forcing Rashi to say that over here does not mean the simple meaning Ashiyah by touching it from the outside. And that's what Rashi's mitzayim to Tereskenim or nitzim posik pshuti shamikra pashas chokas. Why doesn't Rashi? If the whole thing is because we learn it out in pashas chokas already for Tama Mes, why does he have to go to the Tereskenim? Teres in pashas chokas it says. So while the echoch from posik is Aleph, verbunden mit an arichis. The whole pasuk there is talking about the pasuk is talking about the paradumo, and then all the dinner on paradumo, and then the pasuk says the kol klip suach asher ain't summit pasuk all of Tamihu. Rashi learns we're talking about klecheres. There's a whole arichis in it. Not necessarily that the Ben Chomish Lamikra is going to catch the arichis. Beis euch nachdem is nicht sicher that the Ben Chomish Lamikra that verstenke the boy dem liegt. That's why the posuk itself is not sufficient to bring just quote the posuk. The Tereskenim is over the limit beferish and beferish. But there, the Tereskenim says the Kalvachem simple words. Tamas Mes is more stricter, and it's not mitama acherev. If say so, also the same thing, simple thing. Es ist aber nicht ausgehalten. This limit is this word is not out. Weil sagt der Rebbe levat zeis, was es bleibt noch nicht glattig. Aber was schreibt nicht Rashi dem hechlich beferish genau? Just write it openly. Is Neisab Lazem is another thing why we can't say this shot. So what are you coming as a result of that? As a result of it, we can learn that what we can't learn, that means touching from the outside. That's a svara, because it's equal. Svara, pshuti, shall make it equal to mes, just like mes is not matama macherim. This is also not matama macherim. Therefore, what do you come? Making a chidush. So what is a chidush over here? What's a chidush? That's matama beheset, right? Atama mes, idach nish matama bemes. The Tama Mes is not Matama Beheset. The Gemara says, the Rabbi quotes in Gemara in Shabbos and Daf Gimel, that Leim Matzinu Lechaver, the din of Tumas Hesed, by Tumas Zov, we don't find another place anywhere in the whole Torah. It's a Chidush. Is oi, me can sagen, that the Posek Ashige be kum mechadish sein, as Azov is Matama Behesed, was it nicht Tova, Tumas Mes. You come and say, Bibal, you can't touch it, means Macherov, yeah, Chidush. Was soll man nicht sagen, als der Chiddush, als Niga besteht in dem, was so ist, Mutama Aklecheres Mavero. So, okay. You're going back to Pshuti Shemikra also, und der Pirush darf sein Odiv, weil Leute dem, Dafke wird man teich Niga bei Pshuti. You're making a Chiddush anyway. So what's bad to make the Chiddush that even though in everywhere the Klecheres is not Mutama Mavero, only mi Avirei, over here the Chiddush is it is Matama Macherev, and the result of that, what's going to be the touch in our Posach Ashiga Bay? Touch Macherev. So you're making the Chiddush. You make the Chiddush anyway. So what's the difference? This Chiddush and this Chiddush. This Chiddush is even a better Chiddush. It's Mikra. Says the Rebbe in Sif Dalit, L'chaira, but we can't emphasis as Rashi's Hechserech is from Siyam Aposik, Kol creates, he shot it by my. Because the pasuk also adds in this din of kol kliyetz yishad b'mayim. Oh, now I know that the hechrech is it can be touched. Why? Because if you're going to say that the chiddush over here is what Teres Kenim says, that you metamid behesed by pushing it even without touching it, is moving the chiddush or the continuation of the pasuk get called kliyetz. As ba'azov is oich kliyetz tami behesed. It's a chiddush. Hesed is a chiddush. If you say that it's metamid behesed, and the cheres has to be broken, the kliyetz could be put in the mikveh. Hey, Baba, you can men keep shooting after going to give my head. But if you're going to say it means the chidush is that it won't, that even though klecheres is not metama machedov, over here it is metama machedov. So where's the chid padush? And do the pasuk mechadish as azov is metama klecheres duch negia machedov. So what is the chiddush? The chiddush is in the klecheres. Lefiza vetach lefiza kosher. He wasn't the chiddush in kol kliyetz. The whole thing was only because we learned already before in Pasuk Shmini that a klecheres is not metama machedov. Okay, so it's a chiddush in the din of a klecheres, the din of not touching machedov, not even come metama machedov. But saying kliyetz, we never thought differently. So why do you have to repeat it over here? As a kliyetz that Tommy ben Negia machedov is a chnishakish chiddush. Aber die hasbare schwer. Sagt der Rebbe. Aber euch die hasbare schwer zu einlernen in Pirshas. But the Rashi matig when in the Dibra Maskell, if this is what's machriach Rashi, the chiddush to say that it means over here hesed and not to touch, it's because the pasuk says the words kliyetz. Rashi should be matig those words. Although the chalapogas manam zayin mit dem wort v'goymer, und bald as Rashi tut es nit, is a raya as halt es nit v'achocha. As you get meint hesed, okay, the kamon, other as the raya was a bring, there's a besser, and that's why Rashi does not even bring that raya from called kliyetz. So the Rebbe starts over here to be masbeh the biur. Sif hey. Wird man das verstehen bei Hegdem Atmiya? There is a gewaltige kasha, which actually the Gemara asks, as the Rabbi is going to say later on. Was lernt uns der Freidike Pasuk? Before this Pasuk, which we're learning right now, there's a Pasuk one before, it says, anything that the Zav touches, he didn't go to the mikveh, we have to understand, in Pasuk Zayin, it says before, that if you touch a Zav, you have to go to the mikveh, and you tell me until the evening. So what is the repeat over here in this pasuk over here? In pasuk Yud Gimel, in pasuk Yud Aleph. It's almost the same thing. It's mamish the same. The Rebbe in bracket says like this: "Und der din was Rashi is mafarish. Rashi is mafarish in this pasuk as kol zman was late tovel mitum osei. As long as it didn't go to the mikveh, I feel a pasuk mezev it stopped having the zev. The Sofa Shiva counted 7 days. If he didn't go to the mikveh, metame. So that's maybe that's the addition of our pasuk over here. So the Rebbe says is aleph. First of all, kebedes araplan for a kol chicken, and we know that kol chicken is up shudish mikveh. A kol chicken for the din by yeledes, which says in Pashas Azriya. Was muz haben tefillah und leave more that. I feel a noch tefillah. The din b'chol kedesh leisiga. Ve'ein shim shemare letahara atshkiyas hachama shel yem aboim shel mochatob es kaporas tahara. So we know from there already that even after the mikveh, you still, if you need something else, you still are in a certain tumah. Well, lachas kama if you didn't go to the mikveh, so you don't have to say this whole pasuk over here. It's you can learn it from the Kabbalah. And beis ve'ikir, even if you, whatever the reason is, you do want to say it by us over here, sleep them, darf the Teire nicht bechazer im ganzen Posik. The Teire, es wollte gewen genug an Einstellung, die Werte, wie Yodov, Leshotav, Amayim, für jeden Posik. Vanageh, B'sar Azov, says in Posik Zayin, says, Vanageh, B'sar Azov, and add in the words over here. And Yodov, Leshotav, Amayim, he didn't go to the mikveh. And if he didn't go to the mikveh, that's all. It's Tamei Adorah. And the sleep did to me because of this kasha. What's the whole pasuk of Hilchah is extra. Let take the Gemara, and neither the Gemara says over there. Ados was a state b'chol hashayig be'azov. The pasuk Yud Aleph. This pasuk before our pasuk. What does that pasuk come to teach? Meint nicht nigia. B'chol hashayig does not mean touching, nor hesed. That's the additional of the pasuk Aleph. That's what the Gemara answers. But Rashi learned the Chaber and Teres the next pasuk which we're dealing in our pasuk Yud Beis. Rashi says that the din of Hesed, we don't learn that from pasuk Yud Aleph. We learn that from the next pasuk which we're learning now. Aber lernt, as the Yigabe von unser pasuk, später the pasuk meant Hesed means touching. Bleibt doch Kosher, so we have back to the first kasha of the Gemara, like Pirush Rashi, to live was state der pasuk bechel Yigabe Hazov, mezet nicht as Rashi soll es bavarim. We don't see it. Rashi explains the addition, the explanation of the pasuk Yud Aleph. Not there being them is Oich le pshuti shel mikra. Ken stehen a ganze Posik zlieb ein Prat, was wird neschadisch nehmen. The Posik im Shel Mikra, the truth of the matter is not only, so that's the Rabbi says, Oivich Pshuti Shel Mikra. Even the Gemara explains this, and the Medrashim explain it as well, that you can write a whole Posik because of one thing which is neschadisch. Over Mekol Shekain, von dem was es chazet, man mo chazet über the Teda, a ganze Parsha b'shvil da was neschadisch bo, as we have and Pirush Rashi Pashas Notzi Rebbe's Mitzayit. Und wie wir sehen, as we see gleich in Pashas Bereshis, the Terech Chazet eben noch einmal, dem Sibbe von Briis oder Mechava, slib die Protim, es kommen zu in dem zweiten Sibbe, Void. Terech repeats about the creation and the creation of mankind, and then the Terech repeats the whole story of Adam Mechava because of one Prat, a few Pratim, which is Nechel. So if so, you can say that the pasuk repeat because of one chiddush. Und der Fall ist bepschutische Mikra can kasha nicht tzli was darf stehen der pasuk bechel hashiyiga be'azov. Why do you need the pasuk Yud Aleph bechel hashiyiga be'azov? You don't. That's not a kash. Why not? Weil da steht tzli dem chiddush von der zugegebene Werte wie yodav l'shata b'mayim. Which we have to understand yodav l'shata b'mayim means his hands. What do you mean yodav l'shata b'mayim? What Rashi explained was lernt uns wie Rashi's Musayim Perushi noch the verse befarish dem Pshat, even though the din is it's not because through washing your hand become clean. You have to go to the whole mikveh. So why does the pasuk use the word yodav? She'ein beis hastorim ton b'yasmayim alever hagol l'kmiyah yidayim. That on the hidden parts in the body, you don't have to open up your eyes, you don't have to open up your mouth. The inside doesn't have to go into the water. Just like Yodav is outside. That's a chidush which comes in this pasuk, which doesn't say before. Okay, so the pasuk repeats a whole pasuk because of one thing, which is in Schadish over there. That's all. So that pasuk is not a kasha and pshuti shel mikra, even though the Gemara learns it's an extra pasuk, and the Gemara learns that a chidush din of Hesed. Rashi learns chidush din Hesed from pasuk, as we're going to explain now. And therefore, and the previous pasuk, it's not a kasha why it says repeat, because there's one detail which is Chadish over there that only the varim which are revealed outside the goli you have to have in a mikvah. But Rashi kommt aber zu unser pasuk. Was echt da wird schwer. Was ist der Chiddush pasuk? Over here, the same thing the pasuk we're learning now. We know with the shaila what's a chiddush. As a keli wird Tommy durch die Gies Azov kämen wissen, wenn man kolchig für Kalvacheme von die Friedrike Dinim, as a Odom wird Tommy bei die Gies Azov, as Azov is mit Tama Philip Mishka V'Meshav. We can learn the fact that a keli becomes Tommy from Azov. You can learn with Kalvacheme that a person becomes Tommy, that Azov does a Mishka V'Meshav. For sure, a keli can become Tommy. If so, why do you need the whole pasuk that a klecheres becomes Tomei, or a kleetz becomes Tomei? What? It's a double portion. You can learn it out. Darf do Rashi bavoren, and that over here the pasuk is teaching us yochel afilu nogabe ma'acherov. Over here, the chiddush is that you have to understand that not that it becomes Tomei ma'acherov. About that the pirush pasuk ashi yigabe is afilu ma'acherov. That the pshuti mikra means that a klei cheres, a keli, comes to the tamei by touching it in outside. Yigabai. Können wir doch mal sein, aber der Chiddush besteht in dem, was so ist mit Tama Benegia, a klei cheres, ich mache wir genau bariches. You could say that that's a chiddush. There's a chiddush in the pasuk. Sure, the pasuk comes to teach you a chiddush. And what's the chiddush? And we have to have a chiddush in the pasuk. You can't repeat the pasuk without any chiddush. Okay, so we're going to make the chiddush. The chiddush is that even though a klei cheres is not mitame machero, by itself it is mitame machero. What we asked before, was is the same apostle created the chiddush. We said before that one of the Biurim wanted to say, why does the Torah have to tell you that a clay AIDS is mutame? According to what we're learning right now, it's no makasha anymore. Because if you have one chiddush, you can repeat the whole thing again. So what's the big deal? So the Torah says the kol creates you shut the b'mayim. Is nicht talking about wie gesagt, es genug, was der Pasuk tut auf Achilles nur in ein Prat, as a klecheres is azov mitame mit gim acherov, and no makasha why it says the hemshich of the Pasuk that a kleet is also mitame. B'meila, that is the chiddush over here, and this is the chiddush here, that a klecheres l'cha'ira is mitame acherov. That's what I could have thought. Und the Tosfos Raya to the Myochoil, you need a chiddush. The chiddush in Pshuti Shel Mikra is that is Mitama Machero. The Tosfos Raya, as the Rabbi said before, that why does Rashi bring down Teres Kenim? Is the Tosfos Raya to the Myochoil is Rashi Meisiv V'chulu Kedisha B'Teres Kenim. But dort Zetten Tak over there, you see in Teres Kenim, Taka asks this Shaila as Mitzadam Chumre for Tumazov is Yesh Mokim Loimer Azov Matamazain Klei Cheres Machayov. Chotch Ames Kenes Nit Matamazain. Ames cannot Matama Klei Cheres Machayov. And the Chiddush Teres Kenim says maybe I would think this one that it is Matama Machayov. Azov is Matama Machayov. Das heißt, das a bisschen a gedreht, a middle gedreht away. This is what the Rabbi says. Das heißt. Das was Rashi's mit seinem Kein Teres Kenim, why Rashi brings the Teres Kenim, is nicht zu der Hascholas HaHemshech zum Limit Azazov is nicht mit Tame Klecheres Macherov. I would think, Bepashis, if you leave without the Rebbe's Chiddush over here, I would learn that the what Rashi brings the Yochim and Kirisa B'Teres Kenim is to explain you the why, what's a Hasbara Taka, why not? Why is it not mit Tame Macherov? And of there, that's the hemshich of the Teres Kenim. It says because you slug up the kavachemer and you learn it out from a different why the kavachemer is not a good kavachemer. Nor the lim. Das heißt, das was Rashi mit seinen Teres Kenim ist es nicht sli das cholas a hemshich. So limit as azov is nicht mit tame klere macherov. No verkehrt zu dem Siem, der zweite Svore, in Hemshech hat es gegeben. Ad, ob es mich zu ist Magoi. Als es ist ja da Svore Jochel. Als viele Noge bei Macherov, soll Tome werden Tome Heit Time ist, der Ruf nochmal am ist, durch Vachulu und bringt das nicht befehlisch. In other words, Bepashis, I would think that when the Rashi is quoting the Teres Kenim is to tell you the Svore of the beginning, to learn out that Azov is not Metame Kler Macher Macher. I'm bringing down the whole because of the end of the Rashi. That what that is not Metame Macher. That's what it is. Just let Rabbi know. What he brings over here is to explain the Svara. Why would I think that it is Metame Macher? Just like in Teres Kenim, there's such a Svara. And that's what he brings. But not like Abba to see him. Und der Hechrich, also wir können also nicht lernen, ist von dem Siem hat es keinem, Eise Magoi, Shukikule, aber ihm ist Sete, okay, come on. This is what seems ein der Rebbe thing is on. It says the Hasbor in them. What's the Hechrich in Pshuti Shel Mikra to tell you that it's Tumas Hesed? Well, it's just like this. Noisev of them what we asked before was the Chair is the ganze Posik Iberik. And which on that we answered that being that there is one chidush, that's enough to bring the whole posik. In this itself, the Rebbe is in the Verte bat cholas hakosuf. Asher yiga be hazov, klicheres. Asher yiga be hazov, ayit loshen legamri. Why is it extra? The pasuk kommt doch bei Hemshech zum Friedrichen pasuk. This pasuk comes in continuation to what we learned in the previous pasuk. Azov, v'chel hashiyig be'azov. So we know we're talking about azov and is touching something. The question is, what gewen genug, also steht bekitzu klei cheres yishovet. That if it's a klei cheres, it should be yishovet. Why do you have to go back again? But if the zov is touching a klei cheres, it's one hemshech hasipur. That if a klei azov touches, it touches this is this, and the klei cheres is yishovet. Al derech v'in siyam apostle, just like we have now apostle itself. What says L'gabe Klei Eitz Yishata B'mayim? Tenon says that if the Zav touches the Klei Cheres Yishata B'mayim, it goes be'emshech. As a state nicht noch einmal Klei Eitz Hashi Yigabei Azov Yishata B'mayim. So Enechanami we learned before that a whole pasuk can be said extra for the chidush, for one chidush, but that's only the chidushim can be said extra. But are we talking about a specific thing about a Azov? That Azov touches something? That is what we're talking about. You don't have to repeat it over again. In der Rebbe mistabet zu sagen, that der Chiddush in dem Posik liegt in die Wörter as Yigabei. That's why there must be that the Chiddush is in these few words Yigabei. A Yigabei meint da a nayer öfen in Negia. Nicht wie Negia is verstehen freier. That over here, Yigabei is a new concept. And that's why the Posik repeats again. That's why he says that again. The Yiga is boy, and Agia in der ganze Kloes Hakeli. Und nicht wie a gewöhnliche Agia, was ist in der Schettach mit Zumzum von der Sache. Aber Loschen Rashi, sehr magoi shu kekuloi, aber immer sehr Seite, weil durch dem wird es natne the ganze Keli. Over here, the Chiddush, the Rashi is trying to bring out that Yiga boy, this Yiga has to be boy. Because the whole word in the pasuk is extra, so we must say that this yigav is a new concept, and the pasuk continues on boy. Boy means in the whole thing. When a tummy mess touches something, it touches one little thing, and then the whole keli becomes tummy because it's part of the keli. But over here, what type of a negia is boy? The actual touching is boy. The only way is pushing it. Pushing it, the whole keli gets pushed. Mashenkin oben wird lernen that the Chiddush in Posik is in them. Was a klecheres is mitama macherev. If you're going to say the previous, what we wanted to learn, the pshuti shall make it the Chiddush, that even though klecheres b'derech klal is not mitama macherev, only me'avirei. Over here by Azov, yes, is the Chiddush not in the vetter klecheres. Aber oder euch in the word boy, aber nicht in the word yiga, boy, zusammen. Therefore, that is the hechem shudishal mikra, that it tumas hesed, touching by moving it, because over here we understand why the Torah repeats it over again, the inyan of the words v'klecheres yiga behazah. The Rebbe continues on over here in Sivches. The hero and Avodas Hashem. Let's learn it quickly. Klecheres, the Rebbe says, was wird gemacht von Offer. Klecheres is made out of the earth. Is merames have mentioned was he said in Offer. Represents a person who is created from Offer. Kweshidamar, Vayitzer Vayelikim, as Adam Offer min Adamah ki Offerat. When if them sagt man, and this we say, as a Klecheres wird nicht Tommy Ma'achedov. What does that mean? Achedov over here represents the Nyanim von Elam Hazeh. Was werden zugeklebt im Guf Adam, things from this world that are just stuck on to the person, but their Guf, seiner, wird angerufen, Acherov, the Guf of a person is called his back, können nicht mitamen sein dem Etzem von a Yid. Das cannot mitame the essence of a Yid. But bald as der Eibishter, hat ihm beschaffen as sei. The Eibishter created him in such a way, as sein Guf muss ankommen zu Achilloch Stier, Scheiden Yonim, as Elam Hazeh. He must benefit from the things of the world. Was al piteva hat hanor for say, and the Eibishter created in such a way that a normal person enjoys those things. Und die Avoide is doch nicht zu brechen dem Guf. And Avoide, we know that there's a Balshem, not to break the Guf. And da sein Osef Tazevime, you have to help out. Machen von sein Guf, v'chelke boilam, adir leis borich betachteine. Is nicht schuldig in dem, was hat was es haben sich zu ihm zugeklebt in Jahren von Elam Hazeh. Chotsch als Sof darf rein werden for say. He has to become clean, but it's not his fault that it got stuck to him. Dem zok Rashi yochel afilu noge be macher. But what you can't mean, a person could have thought that a tumach hamuna vizov was is metama eden has Sholom afilu macher. What Ziva is a different type of a tumah. But the Indian Ziva and not an Indian TV vidama nipa, no a chayli aguf. That's a sickness. Dam merer. This is a dam merer. Wie es darf sein mit seiner Teva ha'olam. Aber was ist Adam? Dam anida is der Ram, was ist da mit seiner Teva bei Jeden ki Yetzirah Adam Ram Nurov. Dam aziva, doch was megade Yetzirah olav. He pulls the Yetzirah on him. Noch mehr, wie die Yetzirah ist im Wavel mit seiner Atzmei. Los nach noch in azivai yikra ba'odam b'tseisei miderech hayeshe b'hasmode b'macholov. Ziva is a result of a person going out from the normal nature things that he has to have in derech hateva, and he does it continuously b'hasmode. Therefore, what man you can't mean as in them fall in a tal of ziva which a person dragged the Tuma on himself. Vetter mensch klecheres is a adam. We say to me often. Maybe he becomes tummy. He becomes tummy even the goof. Maybe his essence is going to be affected by the goof. Without as falt durch in Azara was it nicht muchrach because he fell in through in things which he doesn't have to do. If them zok the tereskein in Barashi, that's what Rashi says. As when the Negias Hazov is Magoy Shuki Kulei, as writ in Klolos Adam, can the Klecheres Tommy werden a film Achero. Aber Stama Negia, a film von Hazov, can nicht on in dem Etzem von ihm. Okay, besagt in Rambam, as a fila Yid, was mit darf im Käufer sein, zu tun Mitzvah, is es, die Kvier no Mitzvah, sein Chetzenies. Yitzreyu, Shetokvi. Aber euch dann ist bei Pneumiuse Retzelies mi Israel, Retzelu lasis kol ha-mitzvahs. Und durch das Kvier wird abgenommen der Ovok, was ist Machasse und Malim, auf dem Rotzen Hamiti von dem Iden, und es wird das Galle der Emes Abai Elam, euch Elam, als Eid sagt, Retzani Elies mi Israel und lasis kol ha-mitzvahs.